I am a big fan of Star Fox. I don't get a whole lot of opportunities to talk about the series, but I love these arcadey space shooty shoot games. Man, they're just so much fun. Heck, I even love Star Fox Zero, and Star Fox Command has some good ideas. Nintendo may not pay the franchise a whole lot of mind, and there's some games that I think are a little bit of a mixed bag, but the series as a whole is still something special to me. Despite that, I haven't dedicated any videos to this series, until now at least. And for the longest time, I hadn't played the original game. It's the last game I needed to play for me to have played the whole series. The last real game, anyway. But in recent years, it's been properly re-released, so I finally gotten the chance to play it. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The most interesting thing about Star Fox has got to be the graphics. The game puts the SNES's Super Effects chip to use to display 3D polygons on the system. That's very impressive for the time. Anyway, I'm not one for technical stuff, so I guess I won't go into any further details so that we can go ahead and talk about the game itself, as well as to prevent my brain from exploding. The year is sometime, and the evil Andross is waging war on the entire Lilat system. General Pepper from Corneria sends Team Star Fox, consisting of Fox McCloud, Falco Lombardi, Peppy Hare, and Slippy Toad, to go take out Andross and his fleet. The team slowly progresses from Corneria all the way to Venom while shooting down foes across the planets. You take control of Fox and maneuver your R-Wing around obstacles and shoot enemies in on-rail levels. You do all this while keeping yourself alive, carrying your team, and defeating the boss at the end. You can shoot down enemies, boost or brake to adjust your speed, and if you double tap the L or R button, you'll deflect enemy fire by doing the legendary barrel. You've got all these useful tools and the rest of the team to help you reach Venom. And it's simple, but it's a pretty good time shooting up bad guys and big bosses. Oh, and the graphics are of course pretty dang good for the time. However, I do have a few issues with them. Some of the models look really awkward, and at times it's really hard to tell exactly what you're doing. Not helping is, because this is pushing the hardware to its limit, the game consistently has a very strong 5 frames per second! Yeah, it's not easy to get accustomed to it. And like I said earlier, your partners aren't going to help out a whole lot. I know it's a common and overused joke to call your wingmen useless, but bro, in this game, that's actually the case. They always find themselves in trouble and you need to save them. Then I start shooting and they're all like, bro, stop hitting me! No, shut the frick up! But, yeah, it's hard to aim and be precise with this performance, as well as a couple other problems. Also, don't get the idea that these are huge issues. They're pretty minor, aside from the performance, I guess. The game is pretty forgiving, aside from levels on the harder path, as well as this frickin' boss that was giving me so much trouble with his scootin' and shootin'. Now, I bet you didn't know this, but Luggo actually has time travel powers, so this was no issue for me. Oh, and on the topic of bosses, I find Andross's old design a little bit weird. I know they had to go for this look because of hardware limitations, but I'll always find it strange. Oh, and also, at the end of your route, you reach Venom and fight Andross. He spits funny tiles at you, you defeat him, we escape, everyone is happy, Tom is playing Fortnite, and that's the game. At worst, it can be a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't get too bad. And as I mentioned, there are multiple pathways you can take from the start for more replayability. This game is very short, but that's okay because it's treated kind of like an arcade game where you're encouraged to get better by playing it multiple times. Or you can take one of the alternate routes to play different levels. Oh, and let's not forget the famous secret level where if you go to Asteroid on the bottom route and shoot a few specific meteors, then touch this stupid bird, you get transported to an alternate dimension where things are really weird and look silly and you fight a slot machine as the final boss. That's wild, my dude. I knew I shouldn't have licked Slippy before the mission. And that's the story about how some animals beat a giant head. But did you know that there was a sequel titled Star Fox 2? Now this one has quite the history. It was in development near the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan. Now, even though it was super close to being complete, the game was scrapped to focus on working on a Nintendo 64 title instead. Another reason for its cancellation was the advancement of 3D technology and how it could have been viewed unfavorably in comparison to the competition. And so, Star Fox 2 was lost to time for several years. Cut ahead to 2017, Nintendo releases the SNES Classic containing several games from the SNES era. And guess what came as a special bonus? That's right, Star Fox 2 had finally been officially released. Oh boy, I can't wait to get my hands on one of these and play the game myself. Oh, no need to fret though, because it was also released on the Switch Online SNES catalog. I first played it on the SNES Classic, but I didn't really get into it until I started playing it on the Switch, so why not add on to this video? Andross is somehow still alive, and he's launched a full-scale attack on the Lilat system. He's taken over multiple planets and is ready to destroy Corneria. Once again, Star Fox steps up to take him down. At the start, you're given a choice of 6 characters and pick 2 of them, with the second one serving as your partner. Though, I feel the need to highlight Miyu and Faye here. These 2 have only appeared in this game, which was unreleased for the longest time. So that essentially makes them the Mighty and Ray of the Star Fox series. Anyway, for my playthrough, I went as Peppy and Faye.
Good luck.
The gameplay of Star Fox 2 is a lot different than the first. There aren't multiple routes and there isn't standard level progression. You're tasked with defending Corneria from oncoming missiles, enemy fighters, and this thing. While you're doing this, you also need to destroy enemy carriers and bases on certain planets. If an enemy reaches Corneria, then it'll take some damage. If it takes 100% damage, then 1, wow bro, you really suck, and 2, the game is over. You need to intercept missiles and fighters on their path, while also destroying Andross's forces. You'll get some help from this dinky little satellite that will destroy smaller threats. It's pretty adorable. When you run into something, a level will start up and you have to destroy all of the targets to move on. Something you'll notice right away is how this game isn't on rails. Surprisingly, Star Fox 2 was the game that introduced all-range mode. And now I don't know whether or not that's a good thing, because most of the time it's fine, but occasionally it becomes extremely bothersome paired with the poor performance. What doesn't help is that there's a timer during the levels, but it ticks up instead of down. You see, everything else on the map will move while you're taking care of something else, so of course you'll want to finish a level as fast as you can. Various things can happen while you're in a level, such as a missile getting launched or an enemy reaching Corneria. Now, clearing the objective isn't very difficult whenever you're infiltrating a base or shooting down missiles, but when it comes to taking down enemy fighters, it can be really annoying. They're harder to target, so I feel like I waste a lot of time on them. Also not helping are the Starwolf encounters, which were also introduced in this game. The members of Starwolf will appear every now and then with the sole purpose of chasing you down and honestly wasting your time. They're not particularly hard, but boy are they tanky. Get good at hitting them with charge shots. Those will shred right through them. With that out of the way, I'm going to bring up some of the characters now that you know what's important. All 6 of them are divided into 3 categories with differing stats. Fox and Falco are balanced, Peppy and Slippy have more health and are equipped with healing items but are slower and need more time to charge their charge shot, and Miyu and Faye have less health but are the fastest and take a lot less time to charge a charge shot. I personally like to go with Peppy or Slippy as my lead so that I can make as many mistakes as I want while ensuring my survival. Faye is just kinda there for the ride, but there was that one funny time she was fighting Leon and both of them died at the same time. I kinda wonder what that looked like. But I also like using her in carrier raids, because together we can show the world what we can do. She's really frickin' fast. They're easy enough that she doesn't take much damage, and she can save more time than Peppy could. It's good to think about which character to use for a situation because 1, some are better equipped for the job, and 2, you don't heal when you finish a level. You can pick up healing items in the middle of levels, but if you want to fully heal your pilots, then you have to go to the mothership. While you're there, you can also move the ship to a planet Andross doesn't have control over. My favorite part of this game is raiding the bases and carriers. I've always loved space battles, so of course I'd enjoy this. You have to destroy all of these before going to take out Andross. Not only do you fly during these sections, but you'll also go into the walker form for ground combat. This is a pretty welcome addition to the game. I actually think I prefer the walker sections over the R-Wing sections. I just think something like the walker works better in a 3D environment on a 16-bit console over a constantly moving R-Wing. Though I do think moving the camera with the L and R buttons is a little bit awkward, but I completely understand why they had to do it that way. As you can tell, this game requires a lot more strategy. It's definitely different than the first, but that's okay. I find it a lot of fun slowly taking back the Lilat system. I've always loved that that type of gameplay while also defending my own territory. This one is pretty short too. However, for this playthrough, I played on normal mode. Later, I played on horde mode and found that new elements had been added, and Andros took over more planets and sent out more attack carriers. Even his signature pet changed. Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that. Scary space snake! Halfway through, he'll just randomly sick this thing on you to chase you down. We are being hunted by the scariest snake known to mankind. This is it, pupper. This is our last stand for Lilat! Man, that was tough! Well, that was a pretty fun time. I'm pretty glad Nintendo finally released this long-lost game. They should do that more. Star Fox was a technical achievement of its time, and Star Fox 2 is an even bigger one. Nintendo might not see it that way, but I do. Now maybe it was a little too ambitious, as the free-range mode is too much for the SNES to handle at times, but despite some hiccups, the game is still an innovative strategy game. It is kinda weird how the strongest aspects of these games were the graphics, yet nowadays that kind of holds them back. I don't want to say they've aged poorly because I've always really hated hearing people say that, but I do think that these two could benefit a lot from a remake. It would be great to play them with little to no problems, plus Star Fox 2 really deserves it from its sheer impact on the series. It influenced Star Fox Command's tactical gameplay, and introduced all range mode and the walker, which would be put to use in later titles. But whatever, it still feels great to have finally played every main series Star Fox game. But before I go, I have one more thing I'd like to point out. Does the record's theme sound familiar to you? Wow, it kinda sounds like a song some stupid YouTuber would use for his outro.